Look, I'm from a family who believes that education is the means for advancement, the means to become a responsible citizen, the way to experience life most fully, and is the gateway to justice and prosperity. I mean, you can't grow up around people who take education as the core of a family. That's my family. Everybody was about school. I think it was two things. Partly they were really focused on my school, but my mom was teaching in some of the toughest schools in New York and teaching prisoners at the Brooklyn House of Detention. So I knew from a really, really early age, like maybe kindergarten, that she was teaching kids who were having a very different experience from mine. And she told me, you have to understand, they're having a tougher time than you. They have a tougher row to hoe than you have. And it revolves not exclusively, but a huge part of this has to do with school. My brother has been an at-risk child advocate for his whole career. My brother, who's 1 year older than me, who I shared a bunk bed with for 21 years. So I know firsthand, really since I got out of college, because that's when he's 1 year ahead of me, that pre-K, that getting to kids early has immense impact, that it is probably the most important single intervention, and that it is something that is critical in terms of reducing racial injustice and giving kids a real chance to meet their potential. Well, in addition to my mom and my grandfather and my uncle, my brother has been an advocate for at-risk kids for his entire career. So I know firsthand exactly how important early intervention is, how critical it is, also how fantastically successful it is, how importantly positive it is, why it's such a fantastic investment in the kid and in the community and in our country. Obviously, when you go around the United States, which I've done full time for 7 years, you understand that you can't really talk about K through 12 because it's so differential by region, by state, by, county. So you have to draw back a little bit because there's such differentiation between different school programs. But in general, if you talk about K through 12, you have to start with the idea that America's not living up to our goals. And those goals include general success of the system, but also justice between groups, social and racial justice goals. And so in addition, there's no way to have watched the last few years without watching a series of teacher strikes, of teachers striking against a system that's failing them and failing their kids. And so when you look at American education now, you can see a system where we need dramatic improvement in goal setting. We need dramatic improvement in terms of resource allocation. We need much fairer, more just allocation between populations and regions. And we need to really raise our sights and think about education in a different way in our society. I think we've framed this in a way, and I know in my home state of California this is true, we've framed this in a really destructive way, talking about schools and teachers as costs and expenses, as opposed to investments and success itself. Okay, look, Title I is a start. I definitely believe in that. Raising teacher pay dramatically is a start, but they're really just starts. Part of this is about resource allocation, but it's not all about resource allocation. Part of this is about broader educational goals about what we're trying to accomplish and a plan that we set in place for student achievement broadly over a long period of time, and then fund the plan. It's about reimagining what the role of a teacher is in our society. Look, in the societies that are successful, prosperous, and really give kids a chance, really invest in kids, teachers are viewed as the stewards of the future. This is a professional role that's equivalent to doctor, lawyer, architect. It's a different concept of where education fits in terms of society, in terms of prosperity and justice. And you see teachers, therefore that's a different role. It's not a cost. You're not trying to maximize students per teacher hour. Actually, you're looking at those teachers as being the stewards of the future, and therefore you're trying to support them in that role. At the same time, you're trying to support the kids in reaching their maximum capability. All the things we're talking about, they're programs about money, but it isn't just money. It's not just Title I. It's not just raising pay. It's not just wraparound services. It's not just food in schools. I mean, we can talk a lot of things about programs that are absolutely critical, but we have to think about it differently. Well, look, I mean, part of it is about raising pay. Part of it is about giving them professional support in terms of additional teaching and studying during their professional life. Part of it is about smaller class size so they can be more effective. Part of it is about more time for preparation. Part of it is nurses and mental health professionals in the schools. Part of it is about having, and this is something my wife and I did in California food for California kids. Part of it is having healthy food in the schools so the kids are fed breakfast, lunch, and dinner, because otherwise we all know there are a bunch of hungry kids, and if the food is unhealthy, it leads to not just health problems, but behavioral and performance problems. So to me, this is a question about seeing the school in a different way, the whole community school aspect of having a broader mission, but with teachers at the center of it, but with the support so they can do their job in the way they can be most effective. Look, it's the 21st century. Welcome to the real world. Ongoing education has to be available to people. We're going to have people, if we're going to have people get a living wage, they're going to need to be trained. We're going to have to invest in each other for prosperity. That means continuing education with support from the federal government or local government. Period, the end. We cannot have a successful society without that. And I'll tell you something else that I'm sure you guys know, but I'm just going to make a point because it's about framing. It's not anything to do with your question. The group in society that is achieving the most in terms of every educational level is African American women. So when we think about what's going on in this society, and people try to blame the victims because in some way they're inherently incapable of competing and succeeding and don't have the talent or the whatever you want to say. Baloney. Baloney. This is about what we do for each other and how we look at what prosperity means. This is how are we going to actually succeed in the 21st century? This is at the heart of it. And everything they say about fiscal policy and monetary policy and tax policy is about something different. This is about success, and this is about justice. To me, the way we frame our schools and the way we frame education leads to an enormous number of these policy matters. It leads to the questions about, IDEA. It leads to the questions about Title I. It leads to the questions about how we fund them. Look, I view schools and education at the heart of prosperity. This is the 21st century. And so we have to think really broadly about education. And it means that includes a lot of things about continuing education, being educated to take high-skilled jobs. That doesn't necessarily mean the equivalent of 4 years in college. But it's also about justice. We have a society where mobility between different tranches of society has completely stalled. And that's, in my mind, directly related to educational outcomes and educational opportunities. I'm huge on community college. Just as an example, we haven't talked about community colleges. I'm huge on HBCUs. That is the opportunity for kids from disadvantaged backgrounds to get the education they really need to leapfrog into jobs, to leapfrog into four-year institutions. All the things I'm talking about are about the ability to do that. It is about prosperity, but it's also about justice. And so that's at the heart of America. And let's remember, we have a president and an administration that views education as a cost, where they're deliberately trying to tear down the role of teachers, where they're deliberately trying to take power, political power away from teachers and unions, and where they're absolutely intent on reinforcing the stratifications of our society, which to me is dramatically un-American, undemocratic, unjust, and also really stupid. Really, really stupid in the 21st century in this planet. So it's like, yeah, it's wrong, but it's wrong for everybody. They think they can skate on the surface, on the top of a society where they try and ensure that everyone else fails, and that's not true. That is not my definition of a successful society. So all the things that come out of that vision that I'm saying, we have to go back at them and say, your view of prosperity is not prosperity. Your view of justice is not justice. The way you're framing this is by definition defeating the purpose of what we're trying to accomplish as a people.